Before we dive in, a quick but important heads up. The strategies and information in this presentation are for educational purposes only. They are not a substitute for professional business, financial, or legal advice tailored to your specific company's situation. Every business is a unique engine, so always consult with your own qualified professionals before making major strategic decisions. Let me tell you a story about a company called Innovatech Solutions. Maybe you've heard a story like it. Maybe you're living it. Innovatech was the quintessential American dream. Born in a garage in Austin, Texas, they had a brilliant software-as-a-service product that solved a real problem for mid-sized businesses. And they exploded. In just 3 years, they went from 5 people to 200. They were featured in tech blogs, they were poaching talent from bigger companies, and their revenue charts looked like a rocket launch. On the surface, they were crushing it. But underneath, a cancer was growing. The sales team, in their rush to close deals, had promised custom features using a patchwork of third-party tools that didn't talk to the core product. The marketing team bought a shiny new automation platform, but it couldn't sync with the sales CRM, so their lead data was a mess. The engineering team, under constant pressure to ship new features yesterday, had built a tangled web of microservices, each with its own database, its own logic. They called it agile, but it was actually just organized chaos. Every team was an island, buying their own software, creating their own data, and solving their own problems in a vacuum. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Their biggest client, a $10 million a year account, called in a panic. Their system was down. The support agent who answered the phone couldn't access the client's usage data because it was in a system only the engineers used. So they escalated it. The engineer who got the ticket couldn't figure out the client's specific subscription level because that data was locked in the sales team's CRM. The head of sales, trying to help, couldn't understand the technical logs the engineer sent over. It took them 9 excruciating hours, 9 hours of finger-pointing, frantic Slack messages, and pure chaos, to discover the problem was a simple, expired API key in one of the third-party tools the sales team had greenlit 6 months earlier without telling anyone. They saved the client, but the trust was gone. And that night, the CEO of Innovatech sat in his office, staring at a whiteboard covered in incomprehensible diagrams from 10 different departments, and he had a terrifying realization. He hadn't built a company. He had built a Frankenstein's monster, a collection of stitched-together parts that were at war with each other. And he knew with chilling certainty that it was going to collapse. Does any of this sound familiar? Maybe not the 9-hour outage, but the symptoms. That nagging feeling that things are getting more complicated, not less. That your teams are working harder but moving slower. You're asking questions like, why is our IT budget growing by 30% every year, but everything feels clunky and disconnected? Why can't our sales and marketing departments agree on a single basic number, like how many customers we actually have? Why does a simple update to our billing software break the customer portal and the analytics dashboard? You're pouring money, talent, and time into your business, but you feel like you're building on sand. You're wondering, are we creating a scalable, valuable asset, or are we just building a bigger, more expensive mess that no one, not even us, will be able to manage in 2 years? If you are asking these questions, you are not alone. This is the silent killer of promising, high-growth American companies. It's not a lack of funding, it's not a lack of talent, and it's not a lack of ambition. It's a lack of a blueprint. You would never ever hire a construction crew and tell them to start building a 50-story skyscraper without a detailed architectural plan. You wouldn't let the plumbing team do whatever they want, the electrical team install whatever they feel like, and the foundation team just figure it out as they go. You would end up with a tilted, unsafe, and unsellable disaster. Yet, this is exactly how most growing companies build their business. They let each department, sales, marketing, operations, finance, build their own technological skyscrapers on the same plot of land, with no master plan, no blueprint to connect them. That blueprint, that master plan for your entire organization has a name. It's called enterprise architecture. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Enterprise architecture? Isn't that some boring, overly corporate thing that only giant, slow-moving companies like IBM or the federal government do? Isn't it about creating 1,000-page documents that no one ever reads? That used to be true. But that is not what we are talking about here. We are talking about modern, agile enterprise architecture. It's not about bureaucracy. It's about clarity. It's not about slowing down. It's about building a solid foundation so you can go faster, sustainably, without breaking everything. It is the single most important, yet most overlooked, discipline for any U.S. company that wants to scale beyond the startup phase and become a dominant force in their industry. It's the framework that separates the companies that grow and thrive from the ones that grow and implode. Studies from major firms like McKinsey have shown that companies with a strong link between their business strategy and their technology, the very core of enterprise architecture, are significantly more profitable and grow faster than their competitors. This isn't a nice to have. This is a competitive weapon. This video and this entire series is your guide to wielding that weapon. We're going to demystify enterprise architecture and turn it from a vague, intimidating concept into a practical, powerful tool you can start using right away. We are going to show you how to stop constantly reacting to fires and start strategically designing a business that is efficient, resilient, and built for the long haul. Over the course of this series, we will give you the exact framework to map out your entire business, from your customer journey to your internal workflows. You'll learn how to see your company not as a collection of siloed departments, but as a single cohesive system. We'll show you how to make intelligent technology choices, avoiding the expensive dead-end software that traps so many companies in a maze of bad integrations. You'll discover how to get your teams aligned, speaking the same language, and working from the same data, finally ending the turf wars between departments. And most importantly, you will learn how to transform your technology from a frustrating, ever-growing cost center into your most powerful engine for innovation and your single greatest competitive advantage. The chaos you might be feeling inside your company isn't your fault, and it isn't random. It's a predictable outcome. It is the direct result of one specific, invisible mistake that almost every single founder and CEO makes during the early stages of growth. And in a moment, I'm going to reveal exactly what that fundamental mistake is, and how the very first, most crucial step of enterprise architecture solves it permanently. That mistake is building a house without a blueprint. Imagine this. You've just bought a beautiful plot of land. You're excited. You want to build your dream home. So you hire a contractor, and on day one you say, okay, let's start with the kitchen. I want a big island right here. So they build a fantastic kitchen. A week later you say, you know what? We need a living room. So they attach a living room to the side of the kitchen. Then you add a bedroom, then a bathroom. But you forgot to run the plumbing, so now they have to tear open a wall you just built. You realize you need a second story, but the foundation you laid for the kitchen was never designed to support that weight. The hallways are narrow and awkward. The electrical wiring is a tangled mess because it was all an afterthought. After a year, you don't have a dream home. You have a monstrosity, a chaotic, inefficient, and incredibly expensive collection of rooms that are barely connected. It's a structural nightmare, and every small change, every repair, costs a fortune and risks bringing the whole thing down. This is exactly what happens inside most growing companies. It's a phenomenon I call accidental architecture. You don't set out to build a messy, dysfunctional company. It happens one decision at a time. The sales team on their own buys a new CRM because they need it now. The marketing team signs up for a different automation tool because it has one feature they love. The finance department builds a complex web of spreadsheets because it's fast and easy. The engineering team starts using a new cloud service because a developer thought it was cool. Each of these decisions in isolation makes perfect sense. They are logical solutions to immediate problems. But when you step back and look at the whole picture, you realize you haven't built a company. You've built a Frankenstein's monster of disconnected departments, incompatible software, and redundant processes. You've built a business that is actively working against itself. And the symptoms of this accidental architecture are painfully familiar to any leader. It's the reason why your marketing team can't get accurate sales data without a week of manual report pulling. It's why your customer service reps have to log into 3 different systems just to answer a simple question. It's why your top engineers spend half their time fixing brittle, outdated code instead of innovating. It's the constant nagging feeling that everything is harder than it should be, that you're spending more and more money just to stay in the same place. This is the silent killer of growth. It's not a single market crash or a revolutionary competitor that brings companies down. It's death by 1,000 cuts. The slow, creeping paralysis caused by a business that has become too complex to function effectively. So, how do you fix it? How do you prevent it? You start with the blueprint. In the world of business, this blueprint is the first and most foundational layer of enterprise architecture. And it's not just a diagram of your computer servers. That's a tiny piece of it. A true enterprise blueprint is a holistic, multi-layered map of your entire organization. It has 4 essential interconnected views: The first view is the business architecture. This is the why. It's the most important and shockingly the most often ignored layer. This isn't about technology at all. It's about strategy. What is our mission? What are our specific, measurable business goals for the next 3 years? What are our core capabilities? What do we actually do as a business? Do we process insurance claims, manufacture widgets, or deliver personalized marketing insights? You have to define these things with absolute clarity. This layer is the North Star for every other decision. The second view is the data architecture. This is the what. What information is the lifeblood of our business? What data do we need to collect, store, and use to achieve the goals we just defined in our business architecture? This includes customer data, product data, financial data, operational data, everything. It asks questions like, where does our most critical data live? Who owns it? How does it flow between departments? How do we ensure it's accurate and secure? Without a clear map of your data, you're flying blind. The third view is the application architecture. This is the how. How do we manage all that data and execute our business processes? This is the layer of software. Your CRM, your ERP system, your marketing tools, your custom-built applications. This view maps out every single piece of software in the company, what it does, who uses it, and how it connects to other systems. The goal here is to create a rational, streamlined portfolio of tools, not a chaotic jungle of redundant and conflicting software. And finally, the fourth view is the technology architecture. This is the where. Where does all this software and data physically or virtually reside? This is the foundation of your house, the servers, the cloud infrastructure, the networks, the laptops. It's the fundamental hardware and infrastructure that powers everything else. It's what keeps the lights on. Think about it: business, data, applications, and technology. The why, the what, the how, and the where. When you have these 4 blueprints, these 4 views, and you see how they connect, something magical happens. The chaos starts to organize itself into clarity. You move from accidental architecture to intentional architecture. Let's make this real. Imagine a fast-growing online retailer. We'll call them Artisan Goods Company. They're growing at 100% year over year. Things are great, but also chaotic. The CEO feels like they're losing control. Without a blueprint, their world is pure reaction. The head of sales says, we need a new CRM to track our corporate clients. I'm buying Salesforce. At the same time, the head of marketing says, we need a better email system to handle our volume. I'm buying HubSpot. Now they have 2 massive, expensive systems that contain overlapping customer information, but they don't talk to each other. So, a customer who gets a marketing email and a sales call on the same day has 2 completely different records. The company looks incompetent. To fix it, they have to hire an expensive consultant to build a fragile custom integration that breaks every 6 months. This is accidental architecture. It's a $10 million mistake born from 2 well-intentioned, but separate decisions. Now let's rewind. What if Artisan Goods Company had a blueprint? First, their business architecture would state a key goal: provide a seamless, unified customer experience across all touchpoints. This is their why. Then, their data architecture would define a single source of truth for all customer data. It would map out what a customer record actually means for their business. This is their what. With these 2 layers in place, when the sales and marketing teams come asking for new tools, the conversation changes completely. Instead of asking what's the best CRM or what's the best email tool, the Chief Technology Officer can now ask a much more powerful question. Which platform best supports our goal of a unified customer experience and aligns with our definition of a single customer record? Suddenly, buying 2 separate, disconnected systems is obviously the wrong answer. They can now evaluate platforms holistically. Maybe they choose Salesforce and use its marketing cloud. Maybe they choose HubSpot and use its sales module. Or maybe they choose a third option that does both even better. The specific tool is less important than the process. They are no longer making isolated decisions. They are making a single strategic decision guided by their blueprint. This is intentional architecture. This one shift in thinking saves them millions in redundant software licensing, integration costs, and wasted employee time. It allows them to scale smoothly, with technology supporting their strategy, not fighting it. They can now see their entire business, from the highest level strategic goal, all the way down to the specific server running the application, as one cohesive system. This is the power of starting with the blueprint. It's the single most effective way to untangle complexity and build a company that is truly designed for growth. It's not a one-time project. It's a living map that you will use to navigate every single strategic decision you make from this point forward. But that leads to the next big question. This all sounds great in theory, but where do you actually begin? How do you sit down and start drawing this map for a business that's already a complex, living, breathing entity? There's a very specific process for this, and the first step is the most critical and the most counterintuitive. It's not what you think. It's not about technology. Let me repeat that. The first, most critical step in enterprise architecture has almost nothing to do with your current servers, your software, or your databases. The most common mistake, the mistake that dooms these projects to failure, is starting with an audit of what you already have. Feels productive, right? Let's make a big list of all our stuff. But it's like trying to navigate a cross-country road trip by starting with a detailed inventory of every screw and bolt in your car's engine. It's information, sure, but it's not the right information and it's not the right time. You're looking at the engine when you should be looking at a map. The first step isn't to look down at your feet, at the mess of wires and systems you're standing in, is to look up at the horizon. You have to define the destination. Before you can draw a map from point A to point B, you must have absolute, crystal clear, unambiguous clarity on point B. Where is this company going? Not in a vague, we want to be the best mission statement kind of way, but in a concrete, operational, what must we be able to do to win kind of way. This is the foundation upon which everything else is built. If you get this wrong, every subsequent decision, every dollar you spend on technology will be a little bit off. And over time, a 1-degree error in navigation ends with you on a completely different continent. So how do you define the destination in a way that's actually useful? You do it by creating something called the business capability map. Now, don't let the corporate speak name fool you. This is one of the most powerful strategic tools a company can possess, and it's shockingly simple in concept. A business capability is simply an expression of what a business does, or what it needs to do, to fulfill its purpose and strategy. Notice I said what it does, not how it does it. This distinction is everything. Let's take a simple example. An e-commerce company like Amazon. What are its capabilities? Well, it needs to manage product catalogs. It needs to process customer payments. It needs to manage warehouse inventory, fulfill customer orders, and handle customer returns. These are the core capabilities. Now think about it. Did Amazon need to process customer payments in 1998? Yes. Do they need to do it today? Yes. Will they need to do it in 2038? Absolutely. The capability itself is stable. It's permanent. But the how? The how changes constantly. In 1998, the how was a simple credit card form on a clunky website. Today, the how is a complex web of one-click ordering, digital wallets like Apple Pay, fraud detection algorithms, international currency conversions, and by now, pay later integrations. The technology and the processes that realize that single capability have evolved beyond recognition. This is the secret power of capability mapping. It separates the timeless what from the temporary how. Most companies, especially growing ones, are obsessed with the how. A department head says, "We need a new CRM. We need Salesforce." They're jumping straight to the how. The architect's job is to pull back and ask, what is the core capability we're trying to improve? Is it manage sales leads? Is it track customer interactions? Is it analyze sales funnel? Because once you define the capability, you can have a much smarter conversation. Maybe Salesforce is the right answer, but maybe it's not. Maybe what you really need is a simpler tool for one part of the process and a better data analytics platform for another. By focusing on the how, you lock yourself into a specific solution. By focusing on the what, you open up a world of possibilities and ensure the solution you choose actually serves the fundamental business need. So, your first step is to get the leaders of the company in a room, not the IT people, the CEO, the head of sales, the head of operations, the head of marketing, and you facilitate a conversation. You ask them, looking at our 3 to 5 year strategy, what are the core capabilities that will make or break our success? What do we need to be absolutely world-class at? You're not talking about software. You're talking about business. Maybe the answer is rapidly onboard new suppliers, because your strategy is to expand your product line. Maybe it's personalized customer marketing, because you're moving into a more competitive market. Or maybe it's manage complex logistics, because you're planning to go from domestic to international shipping. You whiteboard all of this. You group them, you define them, and you argue about them until you have a one-page diagram that shows, at a high level, everything the business needs to do to win. This is your business capability map. It's the blueprint of your destination. It is point B. This document is now your North Star. It is the single most important artifact in your entire architectural process. Why? Because it gives you a stable framework to evaluate everything else. Remember the accidental city? Where every department built its own skyscraper without a city plan. The capability map is the city plan. Now, when the marketing department comes and says, "We need a new project management tool," you can pull out the map and say, "Okay, which core capability does this support? Is managed marketing campaigns a critical capability for our future success? How do we measure its performance?" Suddenly, you're not having a subjective argument about whether one piece of software is cooler than another. You're having an objective, strategic conversation, anchored to the business goals that everyone in that room already agreed on. It also exposes redundancy in a way that's impossible to ignore. When you map it all out, you might find that sales, marketing, and customer service have all independently built or bought tools to manage customer communications. You're paying for 3 different systems, with 3 different support contracts, and your customer data is fractured across 3 different silos, all to serve the same fundamental capability. Without the map, you'd never see it. With the map, it's painfully obvious. You're looking at a map of your city and realizing you've built 3 separate, disconnected post offices on the same block. It's an instant, undeniable call to action. This is why starting with a destination is so counterintuitive, yet so critical. It forces a business-first conversation. It elevates the discussion from what tech should we buy to what must our business be able to do. It turns technology from a cost center into a strategic enabler. The map doesn't just tell you where you're going. It gives you a new language to talk about how to get there. It aligns everyone, from the C-suite to the engineers, on a shared vision of what matters. So you've done it. You've wrestled with the executives, you've hammered out the definitions, and you have this beautiful one-page blueprint of your company's future state. This is your ideal city, perfectly zoned and planned for success. But right now it's just a dream. It's a drawing on a piece of paper. You are still standing in the middle of your current messy, accidental city. The next step is to bridge that gap between the vision and the reality. It's time to take your perfect future state map and start overlaying the chaotic, real-world mess of what you have today. And this is where the truly shocking discoveries are made. This is where you find out just how much that legacy system is costing you, not in dollars but in lost opportunity. This is where the map goes from a strategic document to a powerful tool for radical change. And that process of assessment, that's a whole other story. And that story begins not in a boardroom with a PowerPoint, but in the trenches, with the sound of grinding gears and frustrated sighs. It starts with a company we'll call Acuity Dynamics, a mid-sized American success story, a leader in logistics software, growing at a breakneck pace for a decade. But now something's wrong. The growth hasn't stopped, but it's become painful. Product updates that used to take 3 weeks are now taking 6 months. Their star engineers, the ones who built the company from the ground up, are leaving for nimbler startups. The sales team is promising features that the development team says are a year away, creating a constant, low-grade civil war between departments. The CEO feels it. The VPs feel it. They're making money, but they feel like they're running in mud. They keep throwing resources at the problem, more developers, bigger servers, expensive consultants, but it's like trying to fix a clogged pipe by just turning up the water pressure. The pressure builds, the system groans, and eventually something is going to burst. This is the moment the true assessment begins. This is when an enterprise architect walks through the door, not as a technologist but as a detective. The first thing this detective does is ignore the technology. That's right. They don't ask to see the server racks or the code base. They start by interviewing people. They sit with the head of sales and hear about the deals lost because they couldn't integrate with the new, popular e-commerce platform. They listen as she says, "We're losing to smaller, dumber companies not because their product is better but because it's faster. It just works." Then the detective goes to the customer support department. They listen to the agents who spend half their day toggling between 4 different ancient-looking screens just to answer a simple customer query. They hear the exhaustion in their voices as they describe the convoluted workarounds they've invented just to do their jobs. A patchwork of spreadsheets, sticky notes, and institutional knowledge that exists only in the heads of a few veteran employees. If one of them wins the lottery tomorrow, a whole section of the business's operational manual disappears with them. Finally, they go to the engineers, the ones in the trenches. And here they don't just hear frustration. They hear a kind of grief. These are the builders, the creators, who are now forced to spend 80% of their time just keeping the lights on. They talk about the monolith, a single gargantuan piece of software written back in 2008. It started as the company's crown jewel, their core application. Now it's their ball and chain. Making a tiny change to the billing module, they explain, requires a full system reboot that takes 6 hours and a team of 5 people working on a Saturday night. They can't use modern tools. They can't experiment. They are digital archaeologists, carefully digging around a fragile, crumbling ruin, terrified that one wrong move will bring the whole temple down on their heads. With all this testimony, the detective, our architect, finally opens their laptop. They begin to draw the map. But it's not the clean, optimistic map the executives have on their wall. This is the real map, the street-level view. It's a tangled, chaotic web. They map the flow of a single piece of customer data, from the moment a lead enters the sales system to the moment they get their first bill. And what they uncover is horrifying. The data doesn't flow, it trickles. It gets manually copy-pasted from one system to another. It passes through a clunky 20-year-old database that no one fully understands but everyone is afraid to touch. It gets duplicated, creating multiple sources of truth. The sales team is looking at one customer record, while the support team is looking at another, slightly different one. This isn't a system. It's a rumor mill. This is the assessment. It's not a list of servers. It's a catalog of pain points. It's a diagnosis of the company's central nervous system, revealing where the signals are getting crossed, delayed, or lost entirely. And at the center of it all, sitting like a giant spider in its web, is the monolith. Now the enterprise architect can translate this technical mess into the only language the C-suite truly understands: money and risk. They go back to the boardroom. They don't say, our legacy codebase is inefficient. They say, that 6-month delay on our new product feature? That was caused directly by the monolith. Our top competitor launched their version 3 months ago and captured an estimated 12% of the market share we were targeting. By our projections, that's a $20 million loss in first-year revenue. That's the price of the monolith. They don't say, our data is siloed. They say, the reason our customer churn has increased by 5% this year is because our support team can't get a full view of a customer's history. They're flying blind and our customers can feel it. That 5% churn represents $9 million in recurring revenue, walking out the door every year. They don't say, our engineers are unhappy. They say, our top 3 senior engineers, who cost us over $500,000 to recruit and train, all left in the last quarter. In their exit interviews, they all cited frustration with our outdated tech stack. The cost to replace them, including recruitment fees and lost productivity, will be over $1 million. And we're likely to lose more. Suddenly, the vague, nagging feeling that things were slowing down has a name and a price tag. A very, very big price tag. Enterprise architecture in this assessment phase acts as an MRI for the business. It makes the invisible visible. It shows the leaders the blockages, the tumors of technical debt that are slowly choking the life out of their organization. This is the critical turning point for any growing company. It's the moment they stop treating technology as a utility, like the electricity bill, and start treating it as the fundamental engine of their business. The assessment isn't about placing blame. It's not about pointing fingers at the people who built the monolith a decade ago. Back then it was the right solution. It's about acknowledging with brutal honesty that the architecture that got you here will not get you to where you need to go. The map of the as-is state is a painful document to look at. It's a map of compromises, shortcuts, and decaying infrastructure. But it is the most important document a growing company can possess. Because you cannot chart a course to a new world until you know precisely where you are standing. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built. It turns abstract anxieties into concrete problems, and concrete problems are solvable. With this grim, honest assessment in hand, the company is finally ready. They've seen the cost of inaction. They understand the source of their pain. The detective's work is done. Now the architect's work can begin. The focus shifts from what is to what could be. The map of the past becomes the blueprint for the future. And the first step in drawing that new map is deciding on the destination. This destination isn't a vague mission statement plaque in the lobby. It's not the rah-rah slogan from the annual all-hands meeting. It's the brutally honest, crystal-clear answer to the question, what do we need to become to win? not just next quarter, but next decade. And this is where so many ambitious American companies stumble. They mistake motion for progress. They're so busy adding new features, hiring new teams, and chasing new markets that they never stop to ask if they're all rowing in the same direction, or just splashing furiously in the water. The CEO stands in a town hall and declares, "Our future is data-driven personalization. We will know our customers better than anyone else on the planet." The audience applauds. It's inspiring. But down in the trenches, a senior software engineer hears that and just feels a cold dread, because she knows the customer data isn't in one place. It's splintered across a dozen different systems. The sales team's CRM, a relic from 2008, doesn't talk to the marketing team's new, expensive analytics platform. The e-commerce data is in one format, the in-store purchase data is in another, and the customer support logs are basically just a collection of unstructured text files. To her, data-driven personalization sounds less like a bold vision and more like an impossible nightmare. This is the gap, the chasm between executive ambition and operational reality. An enterprise architecture is the bridge. It's the discipline that translates the what and the why of the business strategy into the how of the technology execution. It forces the tough conversations. It takes that inspiring slogan and asks, okay, to make that real, what has to change? What systems do we need? What data needs to flow where? What skills will our people need? And what will it actually cost? Let's imagine a company, we'll call them Flexi Logistics. They're a mid-sized shipping and logistics firm in the Midwest that's seen explosive growth. Their vision is to compete with the giants by offering unparalleled flexibility and real-time tracking for their clients. A fantastic destination. But their reality, a patchwork quilt of technology. They grew through acquisition, which means they inherited 3 different accounting systems. Their core routing software is a 20-year-old monolith that only 2 people in the entire company know how to maintain. Their new real-time tracking app for drivers is constantly out of sync with the warehouse inventory system, because they were built by different teams who never spoke to each other. Flexi Logistics isn't failing. They're successful in spite of their technology, not because of it. But every new client, every new truck, every new warehouse adds more strain. They are a city building skyscrapers on a foundation of cracked concrete and aging pipes. Sooner or later, something has to give. The enterprise architect comes in, and their first job isn't to write a single line of code. It's to sit down with the leaders and model the future. They don't present one plan. They present 3 potential destinations, 3 distinct versions of what winning could look like. Future A is the efficiency king. In this future, Flexi Logistics doubles down on its core business. The goal is to become the most operationally efficient logistics company in North America. The architecture for this future is all about optimization. It means replacing the 3 accounting systems with a single modern ERP. It means investing heavily in AI-powered route planning to save fuel and time. It means building robust, standardized APIs so the warehouse and the trucks are in perfect, instantaneous communication. The technology serves one master: lowering the cost per mile. Future B is the platform play. This is a bolder vision. What if Flexi Logistics stopped thinking of itself as just a trucking company and started thinking of itself as a technology platform? In this future, they open up their network. They allow smaller, independent trucking companies to use their routing software and tracking network for a fee. The architecture here is completely different. It's not about internal optimization. It's about external-facing services. It requires building secure, multi-tenant systems. It demands a world-class developer portal and an obsession with API uptime and documentation. The technology here serves a new master: network effects and recurring revenue. Future C is the last-mile specialist. In this scenario, Flexi Logistics decides the big, long-haul market is too crowded. The real opportunity is in specialized, last-mile delivery for high-value goods, medical equipment, sensitive electronics, gourmet food. The architecture for this future is about precision and data. It requires IoT sensors on every package to monitor temperature and humidity. It needs a customer-facing platform that provides obsessive levels of detail and control. It demands a dynamic workforce management system to handle complex urban delivery schedules. The technology serves the master of premium customer experience. Suddenly, the conversation in the boardroom changes. It's no longer a vague discussion about growth. It's a concrete debate about trade-offs. The CEO might love the sound of the platform play, But the architect can now show him the 5-year, $50 million investment in platform engineering and security it would require. The COO might be pushing for efficiency king, but the architect can point out how that path might limit their ability to pivot into new, more profitable services later on. The EA model makes the future tangible. It connects the financial forecast to the server rack. It links the marketing slogan to the database schema. For the first time, the leadership team at Flexi Logistics can see the consequences of their strategic choices, not as a risk 5 years down the road, but as a set of architectural decisions they need to make today. Let's say they choose a hybrid approach, focusing on becoming an efficiency king first, but building their new systems with the platform play in mind for the future. This decision, guided by the architect, now gives birth to a set of core principles. These aren't just suggestions. They are the laws that will govern every single technology decision from this point forward. Principle 1. Interoperability by default. Any new system we buy or build must have a well-documented open API. No more data silos. No more black boxes. If it can't talk to everything else, we don't buy it. Period. Principle 2. Cloud-native architecture. We will build for the cloud. This doesn't just mean renting servers from Amazon or Microsoft. It means building applications that are resilient, scalable, and can be updated independently. We're done with monolithic applications that require a full weekend of downtime for a minor change. Principle 3. Data as a product. Every team that generates data, from the warehouse floor to the sales department, is now responsible for making that data clean, accessible, and understandable to the rest of the company. Data is no longer a messy byproduct. It's a core asset that we manage with the same rigor as our trucks and warehouses. These principles become the filter. When a vendor comes in to pitch a new piece of warehouse software, the first question is no longer, how much does it cost? It's show me your API documentation. When a project manager wants to build a new feature, the first question is, how does this align with our cloud-native principles? The destination has been chosen. The laws of the new city have been written. The vague dream of being the best has been translated into a concrete, technical philosophy. The chaos of reactive fixes and legacy workarounds begins to fade, replaced by the deliberate, intentional act of building. The company is no longer just patching holes in the old foundation. It is laying the first perfectly measured cornerstone of a new one, designed from the ground up to support the skyscraper they intend to build. And that new cornerstone isn't just a block of concrete, it's a commitment. It's a declaration that from this point forward, growth will be engineered, not accidental. But a cornerstone, no matter how perfect, is just a starting point. To build that skyscraper, you need more than just a strong foundation. You need a blueprint, a master plan that shows how every single floor, every steel beam, every electrical wire, and every pane of glass will connect to create a single, cohesive, and resilient structure. In the world of business, that master blueprint is called enterprise architecture. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Architecture? That sounds slow, bureaucratic, something for lumbering, old-school corporations. And for a long time, you might have been right. In the past, enterprise architecture, or EA, often got a bad rap for being a department of no, creating complex diagrams that gathered dust while the real business moved on. But that is a fossilized view of what modern, agile enterprise architecture actually is. For a growing US company today, it's not a brake pedal. It's a high-performance navigation system. It's the difference between driving blindfolded through a new city and having a GPS that shows you the fastest route, anticipates traffic jams, and even suggests the best places to refuel. So what is this blueprint, really? At its core, enterprise architecture is the discipline of understanding how all the different parts of your company fit together to achieve your business goals. It's not just an IT function. Let me repeat that because it's the single most important concept to grasp. Enterprise architecture is not just an IT function. It is a business function enabled by technology. It connects the why of your company, your mission, your strategy, to the how, your people, your processes, and your technology. Think of it like this. Imagine you're building a championship-winning football team. You have a goal: win the Super Bowl. That's your business strategy. To do that, you need a playbook that defines your offensive and defensive schemes. That's your business architecture. It defines your capabilities and how you plan to operate to win. Then you need a roster of players with specific skills: quarterbacks, linemen, receivers. These are your applications and systems, each with a specific job. That's your application architecture. Those players need to communicate perfectly. The quarterback calling a play, the center snapping the ball, the receivers running their routes. The way they exchange information, the signals and calls, that's your data architecture. And finally, all of this happens on a field in a stadium with equipment and training facilities. That's your technology architecture, the fundamental infrastructure that everything else runs on. You can't win a Super Bowl if your star quarterback can't communicate with his receivers, or if your offensive line doesn't have the right equipment to practice with. Every single piece has to work in harmony, guided by the same playbook, driving towards the same goal. Enterprise architecture is the head coach and the general manager combined, ensuring that you're not just acquiring talented players, but that you're building a cohesive team where every component is optimized to execute the winning strategy. Let's break down that blueprint into its 4 critical layers. These are the 4 domains that a modern enterprise architect lives and breathes. First, you have the business architecture. This is the top layer, the most important one. It starts with the questions. What is our strategy? Where do we want to be in 5 years? What are our core business capabilities, the things we absolutely must be good at to compete and win? For a retail company, this might be supply chain management or customer relationship management. For a software company, it might be agile product development or subscription billing. Business architecture maps these capabilities and connects them directly to the company's strategic goals. It's the why behind everything else. Second, we have data architecture. If business strategy is the brain, data is the lifeblood of the modern company. This layer defines how your critical data, your customer information, your product data, your financial records, is created, stored, managed, and used. It asks, where is our single source of truth for customer data? How does data flow from our sales system to our marketing system? How do we ensure our data is secure, accurate, and accessible to the people who need it to make smart decisions? Without a clear data architecture, you end up with data silos, conflicting reports, and a business running on guesswork instead of intelligence. Third is the application architecture. This is the layer most people think of when they hear IT. It's the portfolio of software applications your company uses to get work done, from your CRM like Salesforce, to your ERP like NetSuite, to the custom software your teams have built. This architecture isn't just a list of apps. It's a map of how they interact. It answers, should we build this new tool or buy it off the shelf? How do we ensure our new marketing software can talk to our old inventory system? Is having 7 different project management tools across the company creating chaos and inefficiency? It's about creating a rationalized, cost-effective, and integrated ecosystem of tools, not just a random collection of software licenses. And fourth, at the very foundation, is the technology architecture. This is the hardware, the servers, the cloud platforms like AWS or Azure, the networks, and the security infrastructure that everything else runs on. This layer deals with the core engineering decisions. Do we run our systems on-premise or in the cloud? How do we build a network that is both fast and secure? How do we scale our infrastructure to handle a massive spike in traffic during our Black Friday sale? This is the bedrock. A crack in this foundation puts the entire business skyscraper at risk. Now here's the magic. The immense, game-changing power of enterprise architecture isn't in any one of these layers. It's in how they are deliberately and continuously woven together. A change in one layer has a ripple effect through all the others, and only by seeing the whole picture can you manage that change effectively. Let's see this in action. Imagine a fast-growing American e-commerce company, Trailblazer Outdoors. Their 5-year strategy, their business architecture goal, is to become the #1 destination for personalized outdoor gear. They want to offer every customer a unique, curated shopping experience. Great goal. But without EA, this is what happens. The marketing team buys a fancy new AI personalization engine. The IT team is told to make it work. The data science team tries to pull customer data, but finds it spread across 3 different, incompatible systems. The website team tries to integrate the new engine, but finds it slows the entire site to a crawl. A year and $2 million later, the project is a failure. The technology didn't align with the data, which didn't align with the applications, which couldn't ultimately serve the business strategy. Now let's rewind and give Trailblazer an enterprise architect. The EA starts with the business goal, personalized customer experience. They then translate that goal down through the layers. From a business architecture perspective, they define a new capability, dynamic customer curation. From a data architecture perspective, they realize this requires a unified customer data platform. They launch a project to clean and consolidate customer data first. From an application architecture perspective, they evaluate 5 different AI engines, but they don't just look at features. They choose the one that has the best pre-built integration with their existing e-commerce platform and the new data platform. They also decide to retire 2 redundant, older marketing tools to pay for the new one. And from a technology architecture perspective, they provision a scalable, cloud-based environment specifically designed to handle the massive data processing the AI engine requires, ensuring the main website's performance is never affected. The result? The project is a staggering success. It's delivered on time, on budget, and it actually achieves the strategic business goal. That is the power of the blueprint. It's not about slowing things down. It's about eliminating the wasted time, the wasted money, and the soul-crushing rework that comes from flying blind. It's about channeling the entire organization's energy, from the server room to the boardroom, toward a single, clear, and achievable vision. This blueprint becomes a living guide, a strategic map that allows a company to navigate the complexities of growth with intention, clarity, and a profound competitive advantage. But what does this strategic map actually look like in the trenches of a growing American company? Let's move away from the abstract and talk about a real-world scenario. Let's call our company Innovatech, a mid-sized SaaS provider based out of Austin, Texas. 5 years ago, Innovatech was the darling of its niche. They had a killer product, a charismatic founding team, and venture capital money flowing in. They were hiring fast, adding features faster, and scaling their customer base at an explosive rate. On the surface, it was the American dream in action, but underneath, the foundation was cracking. In the frantic race for growth, every department had become its own isolated kingdom. The sales team, obsessed with closing deals, adopted the shiniest new CRM on the market because it promised a 5% boost in lead conversion. Meanwhile, the marketing team was using a completely different platform for their automation campaigns, one they chose because it had better email analytics. Customer support? They were stuck on a legacy ticketing system that was chosen 5 years prior and barely held together with digital duct tape. Finance had its own impenetrable fortress of spreadsheets, and a custom-built billing system that only 2 people in the entire company truly understood. Each decision in isolation made perfect sense. The sales leader got their tool. The marketing VP got theirs. But together, they had unintentionally built a digital Tower of Babel. There was no single source of truth. To get a complete picture of a single customer, you'd have to pull data from 4 different systems, manually stitch it together, and pray the information wasn't contradictory. And it almost always was. Sales would see a customer as a hot lead, while support saw them as an at-risk account with 10 unresolved tickets. The disconnect was staggering. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a ticking time bomb. And that bomb detonated during the launch of their biggest product update yet, Innovatech 2.0. This was supposed to be their moment, the release that would catapult them past their competitors. But it was a catastrophe. The new flexible pricing tiers that marketing had brilliantly conceived couldn't be processed by the old billing system. The sales team had sold premium support packages that the support system had no way of tracking. When new customers signed up, their data took up to 48 hours to sync across all the different platforms, leaving them in a frustrating limbo, unable to access the features they just paid for. The fallout was brutal. The support phone lines melted down. Social media was a firestorm of angry customers. Key enterprise clients threatened to leave. The launch, which was projected to increase revenue by 30%, ended up costing them millions in lost sales, customer churn, and emergency development costs just to stop the bleeding. The leadership team, sitting in a grim post-mortem meeting, had a terrifying realization. Their technology, the very thing that was supposed to be their greatest asset, had become their biggest liability. They weren't steering a high-performance race car anymore. They were wrestling with the Frankenstein's monster of their own creation. This is the wall that so many successful growing companies hit. It's the point where complexity outweighs momentum. And it's the point where enterprise architecture moves from a nice-to-have academic concept to an urgent, mission-critical necessity. Recognizing this, Innovatech's CEO made a pivotal decision. They hired their first enterprise architect. This wasn't a coder or a project manager. This was a strategist, a city planner for their digital world. The architect's first job wasn't to build anything new. It was simply to draw the map of the chaotic city they had already built. For weeks, she embedded herself with every department, tracing data flows, documenting systems, and identifying every single piece of software, licensed or not, that the company was using. What she presented to the board wasn't a solution, it was a diagnosis. A sprawling, complex chart that looked like a tangled mess of spaghetti. It showed a dozen redundant applications doing the same job. It highlighted critical data bottlenecks. It exposed massive security vulnerabilities where sensitive customer information was being passed through unsecured channels between systems. For the first time, the leadership team could see the monster they had created in its entirety. It was shocking, but it was also the beginning of clarity. This is the first crucial value of EA. It replaces assumptions and anecdotes with a concrete, data-driven reality of your current state. You can't chart a course to your destination if you don't have an accurate, "you are here" marker on the map. Next, the architect worked with the executive team not to talk about technology but to talk about the business. Where did they want to be in 5 years? They wanted to expand into European markets. They wanted to leverage AI to provide predictive insights for their customers. They wanted to offer a seamless, unified customer experience from the first marketing touch to the final support ticket. Now the magic happened. The enterprise architect translated those business goals into a technology vision. To expand to Europe, they needed a platform that could handle multi-currency billing and comply with GDPR. To leverage AI, they needed a centralized data warehouse, a single source of truth. To create a unified customer experience, they needed to consolidate onto a single CRM and customer support platform. She presented a new map, the future state architecture. It was clean, logical, and elegant. Instead of a tangled mess, it showed clear data pathways. It had a strong, secure core with flexible services built around it. It was a blueprint for a city designed with purpose, with zones for commerce, infrastructure for transportation, and solid foundations for future skyscrapers. Crucially, she didn't say, "We need to tear everything down and start over." That's a death sentence in a fast-moving company. Instead, she laid out a pragmatic, phased roadmap to get from the chaotic present to the orderly future. Quarter by quarter, piece by piece. In Q1, we will migrate all teams to a single unified CRM. This will be painful, but it will solve our single customer view problem. In Q2, we will implement a central data lake and begin decommissioning 3 redundant databases, saving us $200,000 a year in licensing fees alone. In Q3, we will replace the legacy billing system with a modern, scalable solution that can handle the pricing models we need for future growth. Each step was tied to a specific business outcome. This wasn't tech for tech's sake. It was a strategic initiative. As they executed the plan, the transformation was profound. The next product launch was flawless. With a single customer platform, sales, marketing, and support were finally in sync. Time to market for new features was cut by 40% because developers were building on a stable, well-documented foundation, not a patchwork of legacy code. Business analysts could now pull clean, reliable data, allowing leadership to make smarter, faster decisions. They could finally see which initiatives were driving growth and which were a waste of resources. Their IT budget, which had been spiraling out of control just to maintain the chaos, actually decreased, even as their capabilities expanded. Innovatech didn't just fix their technology problem, they re-engineered their entire capacity for growth. They transformed their technology from a liability that hindered them into a strategic asset that propelled them forward. They could now move faster, operate more efficiently, and innovate more boldly than their competitors, who were still stuck in their own tangled digital jungles. This is the power of enterprise architecture. It's not about buying software. It's about buying clarity. It's about swapping short-term, chaotic tactics for a long-term, intentional strategy. It's the discipline of turning a company's sprawling, accidental digital footprint into a powerful, deliberate engine for growth. And that engine for growth isn't built by accident. It's designed. It's architected. Think of your growing company as a city. In the early days, it's a small settlement. A few houses, a general store, a dirt road. Simple, and it works. Everyone knows everyone, and getting from one place to another is easy. But as the settlement grows into a town, and then a city, things get complicated. If you let it grow organically without a plan, you get chaos. You get residential neighborhoods right next to loud factories. You get narrow lanes that turn into crippling traffic jams. You get 5 different, incompatible water systems because each district dug its own wells. Eventually, the city's own success starts to choke it. It becomes slow, expensive, and fragile. A single water main break can shut down a whole sector. That is what happens to most growing companies. Their technology landscape becomes an unplanned, chaotic city. Enterprise architecture is the act of urban planning for your business. It's about stepping back and asking, where do we want to put the financial district? Where should the residential zones be? How do we design a highway system that can handle not just today's traffic, but the traffic we expect in 10 years? It's about creating a master plan, a blueprint, that ensures every new building, every new road, every new piece of infrastructure contributes to the overall health, efficiency, and growth of the city, instead of just adding to the chaos. So how do you actually do this? How do you go from being an accidental, chaotic city to a deliberately planned metropolis? It's not about boiling the ocean or trying to plan every last detail for the next 50 years. It's a practical three-step journey that begins with a single crucial question. First, you must define the destination. This is the vision, but it's not just a fuzzy business goal like increase revenue by 20%. An enterprise architect translates that business goal into a technology vision. If the goal is to create a world-class customer experience, the architect asks, what does that actually mean for our systems? It means our customer data can't be locked away in 3 different, disconnected databases. It means our website, our mobile app, and our call center software must all provide a seamless, unified view of the customer. It means our marketing automation tool needs to talk to our e-commerce platform in real time. The vision isn't a list of software to buy. It's a clear picture of what capabilities the business needs to win and how technology will enable them. It's the North Star that guides every subsequent decision. Second, once you know your destination, you need to know your starting point. This is the blueprint of your current reality. You have to map the city as it exists today, with all its quirks and problems. This is often the most shocking and valuable part of the entire process. Most executives think they know what technology they have. They are almost always wrong. I'm talking about a mid-sized logistics company that believed they were running about 70 key software applications. After a thorough architectural review, they discovered the real number was over 400. They found departments paying for 3 different project management tools. They found critical customer data being stored in a forgotten, unpatched server under someone's desk. A massive security risk. They found so-called zombie systems, applications that were still running and consuming resources, even though the employees who used them had left the company years ago. This is the reality of shadow IT. Without a map, you're flying blind. Creating this blueprint isn't about blame. It's about illumination. For the first time, you can see the whole picture. You can see the redundancies, the bottlenecks, the risks. You can't fix what you can't see. And third, with a clear destination and a detailed map of your starting point, you can finally build the roadmap. This is the strategic plan that gets you from A to B. And this is where so many companies get it wrong. They think it requires a big bang approach, a 5-year, $100 million plan to rip and replace everything. That's not architecture, that's fantasy. A real architectural roadmap is a series of deliberate, high-impact, sequential moves. It's just like urban planning. You don't bulldoze the entire city. You say, okay, this year our biggest problem is the traffic downtown. So our priority is to build a new bypass highway. Next year, the water pressure in the Eastern District is failing. So we're going to invest in upgrading those pipes. In business terms, the roadmap might say, in the next 6 months, we will consolidate our 3 project management tools into one. This will save us $150,000 a year in licensing fees and eliminate confusion. Then, in the following 12 months, we will tackle our biggest bottleneck, the broken data flow between our sales CRM and our inventory system. We'll build a central integration hub. This project will unlock real-time inventory visibility for our sales team, which we project will increase deal sizes by 10%. Each step on the roadmap is a self-contained project. Each one delivers clear business value, and each one moves you closer to the grander vision, turning that chaotic city into a well-oiled machine. Let's make this real. A few years ago, there was a US-based company we'll call Apex Industrial. They manufactured high-end machine parts. Business was booming, but internally they were falling apart. Their growth was choking them. The sales team using Salesforce would close a huge deal, but the factory using an old custom-built system wouldn't get the updated order details for 48 hours. So the factory floor was always working with outdated information, leading to production mistakes and costly delays. Meanwhile, the finance team had their own separate accounting software and had to manually reconcile everything, a process that took weeks. It was a classic case of a company with great products but a broken digital nervous system. They finally brought in an enterprise architecture team. The first thing the architects did was create that blueprint. They mapped every system, every database, and every single point of connection. When they presented this map to the Apex leadership team, it was a moment of horrified clarity. It looked like a plate of spaghetti, a tangled, incomprehensible mess. For the first time, the CEO could physically see why his teams were struggling. He saw the data detours, the manual workarounds, the digital dead ends. The architect's roadmap wasn't a proposal to replace everything. It was a targeted surgical strike. They identified the single biggest point of failure, that broken link between sales and the factory. They proposed a phased project to build what they called a unified operations platform. It wasn't a single piece of software, but a new architectural layer that would sit in the middle, connecting Salesforce, the factory system, and the finance software. It would act as a universal translator, allowing all the systems to speak the same language in real time. The project took 18 months. It was a significant investment, but the results were transformative. Within a year of going live, Apex cut its production errors by 70%. Order fulfillment times dropped by 40%. The sales team could now give customers accurate delivery dates while they were still on the phone. The finance team could close the books in 3 days instead of 3 weeks. By fixing the underlying architecture, they didn't just solve a technology problem. They fundamentally changed how their business operated, unlocking a level of efficiency and customer satisfaction they previously thought was impossible. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds great for a company like Apex, but it also sounds expensive. It sounds slow. It sounds like adding a layer of bureaucracy. And that's the most common misconception about enterprise architecture. People see it as a cost center, a department of no. But that's a failure of imagination. The cost of a good architect is microscopic compared to the cost of a failed multi-million-dollar IT project that was doomed from the start because it didn't fit the big picture. It's nothing compared to the cost of a data breach from a system you didn't even know you had. And as for speed, architecture isn't about slowing down. It's about eliminating the catastrophic delays that come from building the wrong thing. It's about creating clean, well-documented systems so that new developers can get up to speed in days, not months. It's the difference between navigating a city with a clear street grid and GPS versus navigating a medieval city with 1,000 winding dead-end alleyways. Which one allows you to move faster in the long run? True agility, sustainable speed, is only possible on a foundation of sound architecture. So we have the vision, the blueprint, and the roadmap. We've seen how a company can untangle its own complexity and build a powerful engine for growth. But a map is useless if no one on the team knows how to read it, or worse, if everyone wants to drive in a different direction. The greatest blueprint in the world is just a piece of paper without the right culture and the right leadership to bring it to life. And that is the human element of architecture. It's the most complex, unpredictable, and powerful variable in any system. And if you ignore it, your beautiful, logical, perfectly designed architecture will shatter the moment it makes contact with reality. Because a company isn't a machine made of servers and databases. It's an organism made of people. People with their own goals, their own fears, their own departmental loyalties, and their own interpretations of the mission. This is where so many ambitious technology initiatives fail. Not on the whiteboard, but in the hallways. Not because of a technical flaw, but because of a human one. You see, the biggest obstacle to a coherent enterprise architecture isn't legacy code. It's legacy thinking. It's the VP of sales who needs a feature built yesterday to close a multi-million-dollar deal, even if it means duct taping it onto the side of your core platform. It's the marketing team that just bought the shiniest new analytics tool without consulting anyone, creating yet another data silo that can't talk to anything else. It's the engineering team in one division that has a fierce not invented here syndrome, refusing to adopt a central service because they believe, with all their heart, that they can build it better themselves. Each of these actions makes perfect sense from their limited, departmental perspective. They are all trying to do their jobs and win for the company. But collectively, these isolated, well-intentioned decisions create chaos. They are the 1,000 small cuts that bleed a company's technical strategy to death. This is the organizational inertia, the corporate gravity, that pulls everything toward the path of least resistance, which is almost always the path toward short-term fixes and long-term disaster. So how do you fight it? You don't fight it with better diagrams. You don't fight it with stricter mandates from the top down. You fight it by changing the role of the architect. The enterprise architect in a growing U.S. company cannot be a cloistered academic, handing down stone tablets from an ivory tower. They must be a diplomat, a negotiator, a storyteller. They must be one of the most socially and politically savvy people in the entire organization. Let's break that down. First, the architect as a translator. Your chief financial officer does not care about the elegance of your microservices architecture. They care about reducing operational expenditure and increasing gross margin. Your head of marketing doesn't care about API gateways. She cares about speed to market for new campaigns and personalizing the customer journey. The architect's job is to translate the technical blueprint into the language of business value. They must be able to walk into any department's leadership meeting and answer the only question that matters. What's in it for us? Instead of saying, we need to centralize our customer data into a single master data management platform, they say, we are going to build a single source of truth for our customer data, so your sales team never has to waste time chasing down conflicting information again, and your support team can see a customer's entire history in one click, cutting call times by 30%. One is a technical chore. The other is a business revolution. Same work, different story. Second, the architect as a negotiator. Remember that VP of sales who needs the feature built yesterday? A dogmatic architect says no. It violates the blueprint. Submit a request and we'll review it next quarter. That architect quickly becomes irrelevant, a roadblock to be bypassed. A diplomatic architect says, I understand the urgency and the value of this deal. Let's get in a room. Can we build a temporary tactical solution to get you what you need for this one client, with a firm-funded commitment to rebuild it the right way in the next 6 months? And let's use this as a case study to see how our architecture needs to evolve to support these kinds of rapid, high-value requests in the future. Notice the difference. The first creates an enemy. The second builds an ally. It acknowledges the business reality, provides a path forward, and uses the conflict as an opportunity to learn and improve the architecture itself. It's about finding the yes and, instead of the no, because it's about trading short-term, controlled compromises for long-term strategic alignment. And third, most importantly, the architect as a storyteller. A blueprint is a map, but a map doesn't inspire anyone. People don't risk their careers and sacrifice their weekends for a map. They do it for a destination. They do it for a vision of a promised land. The architect's most critical job is to paint a vivid, compelling picture of the future state. To tell the story of the company they are trying to build. It's a story of a business that can pivot on a dime because its systems are modular and flexible. A story of a company where data flows like electricity, empowering every employee to make smarter decisions. A story of a sales team armed with tools so good they feel like a superpower, and a customer experience so seamless it creates lifelong fans. They have to tell this story over and over in boardrooms, in all-hands meetings, in one-on-ones, until it becomes a shared belief. They have to make the future feel more real and more exciting than the comfort of the present. Now, this diplomacy can't just be an informal ad hoc process. It needs a forum. And this is where a well-run architecture review board, or ARB, comes in. For many, those 3 letters, ARB, conjure images of a bureaucratic nightmare. A slow, painful committee that exists only to say no. And if run poorly, that's exactly what it is. But a great ARB is not a gatekeeper. It's a strategic council. It shouldn't just be senior technologists. It must include leaders from product, finance, marketing, and operations. When you bring these people into the room, 2 magical things happen. First, the business leaders start to understand the real-world consequences of technical debt. They see firsthand how the quick fix their team demanded last quarter is now blocking a major strategic initiative this quarter. They develop technological empathy. Second, the technologists are forced to defend their decisions not in terms of technical purity, but in terms of business impact. It forces them to become translators. The conversation shifts from, is this the correct architecture? To, is this the right architecture for us right now to achieve our specific business goals? The ARB transforms architecture from an IT problem into a shared business responsibility. It becomes the place where the map is debated, refined, and ultimately agreed upon by all the key leaders who will have to navigate by it. To the skeptics in the room, the founders and executives who preach move fast and break things, I hear you. This all sounds slow. Sounds like meetings and talk. But what's truly slow? What truly kills momentum in a growing company? It's the endless rework. It's the project that gets 90% done before someone realizes it's incompatible with another team system. It's the multi-million-dollar acquisition you can't integrate because your technology stacks are fundamentally at odds. It's the burnout of your best engineers who spend all their time fighting fires caused by a lack of architectural foresight. The friction you feel from a poorly designed, chaotic system is 1,000 times greater than the friction of a 30-minute conversation to align up front. This human element, this act of communication, negotiation, and storytelling, isn't a distraction from the real work of building things. It is the most important work. It's the lubrication that allows all the gears of the company to turn smoothly together, at speed. Building the technology is the science. Building the consensus is the art. And you absolutely must master both. Mastering both feels impossible, doesn't it? The technologist in you wants to dive into the code to build the perfect, elegant system. The leader in you knows that a perfect system nobody uses is worthless. This tension is where the magic of enterprise architecture lives. It's the bridge between the whiteboard and the balance sheet, between a line of code and a line on a growth chart. Let's reframe this. Forget the term enterprise architect for a moment. It sounds corporate stuffy, maybe even a little slow. Instead, think of a different role, a city planner. Imagine you're building a new city from scratch. You can hire the best masons in the world, people who can lay bricks with absolute perfection. You can hire brilliant carpenters, electricians, and plumbers. If you just turn them loose and say build, you'll get chaos. You might get some beautiful, sturdy houses, but the roads won't connect. The plumbing won't lead to a central sewer system. The power grid will be a tangled mess. One neighborhood will have a school but no grocery store. Another will have 3 grocery stores and no park. You haven't built a city, you've built a slum. A very well-constructed, expensive, and ultimately unlivable slum. The city planner doesn't lay a single brick. They don't hammer a single nail. Their job is to create the master plan. They ask the big questions. Where do the main arteries of traffic need to go to prevent gridlock in 10 years? Where do we place the industrial zones so they don't pollute the residential areas? How do we design the power and water infrastructure so it can support a population twice its current size without being completely ripped out and replaced? The city planner creates the blueprint, the zoning laws, the infrastructure map that allows all those brilliant individual builders to work in parallel with autonomy, yet have all their efforts contribute to a cohesive, functional, and scalable whole. Your growing company is that city. Every new software application, every new database, every cloud service you subscribe to is a new building. Without a city plan, without an enterprise architecture, you are creating that expensive, unlivable slum. Your roads are brittle point-to-point data integrations that break with every new piece of software. Your power grid is a collection of redundant, overlapping systems that drain your budget and your engineering capacity. Your neighborhoods are siloed departments, each with their own beautiful house of data that no one else in the city can access or use. And in the hyper-competitive landscape of American business, your city is competing against other cities. Cities that are planned, that are smart, that are adaptable. The explosion of artificial intelligence isn't just a new skyscraper being built downtown. It is the invention of electricity for your city. It will fundamentally change how everything is built, how everything is powered, and how everything connects. Companies with a master plan and architecture will integrate this new power source seamlessly. They'll build a smart grid for their data, allowing AI to power every single department, from marketing to finance to operations. They will leapfrog the competition. Companies without a plan will be stuck trying to power a supercomputer with a gas generator. They'll have isolated pockets of AI brilliance that never scale, a tangle of incompatible systems, and a data infrastructure that can't handle the load. They will be left in the dark. So what do? This all sounds massive, overwhelming. You're trying to ship a product, close a deal, make payroll. You don't have time to plan a city. But it doesn't start with hiring a team of 50 architects in an ivory tower. It doesn't start with buying $1 million software suite. Starts with a change in mindset. Starts with asking different questions. The next time a project is proposed in your company, whether it's for a new CRM, a new marketing tool, or a new feature on your core product, I want you to pause. And instead of just asking, what will it do? And how fast can we build it? I want you to ask the city planners questions. Ask, how does this new building connect to the existing city? What roads does it need? In business terms, what other systems will this need to share data with, not just on day 1 but in 2 years? Ask, what utilities does this building consume and produce? In business terms, what data does this system create? Is that data structured in a way that it can become a valuable asset for the entire company? Or will it be trapped inside this one application forever? Ask, Does the location of this building make sense for our long-term city growth? In business terms, how does this project align with our core business strategy for the next 3 to 5 years? Is it a strategic asset, or is it a short-term fix that creates long-term debt? And the most important question of all, if this building is wildly successful and 1,000 more people want to move in, can the infrastructure handle it? In business terms, if this feature or product takes off, what breaks? Can we scale it by 100 times, or will we have to tear it down and rebuild it from scratch, right when we should be capitalizing on our success? These are not questions of obstruction. They are the most powerful questions of construction. They are the questions that separate the companies that truly grow from the companies that just get bigger. Getting bigger means adding more weight, more complexity, more cost, more drag. It's like our failed city, sprawling outwards with no plan, becoming slower and more dysfunctional with every new building. Growing means getting stronger, more capable, more efficient. It's like a well-planned city, where each new development adds value to the entire ecosystem, making the whole city more powerful, more resilient, and a more attractive place to be. This is the ultimate competitive advantage in the 21st century. It's not about having the one smartest engineer or the one killer feature. It's about building a system of advantages, an operating model where your technology doesn't fight your business strategy, it is the engine of your business strategy. An organization where data flows like clean water to every corner of the city, empowering everyone to make better, faster decisions. An enterprise where innovation isn't a random lightning strike, but a predictable outcome of a well-designed, well-architected environment. This is how you build a company that lasts. A company that doesn't just survive market shifts, but dictates them. A company that isn't disrupted by new technology, but harnesses it to disrupt others. A company that doesn't just react to the future, but actively builds it, brick by thoughtful brick, on a foundation of a solid plan. So I challenge you. Go back to your team tomorrow. Go back to your planning meetings. Stop thinking only about the feature you're building this week. Start architecting the company you need to be in 3 years. Because your competitors, the ones who will dominate the next decade, they aren't just laying bricks anymore. They're planning cities. The only question left is, when the history of this era is written, will your company be a forgotten ruin of chaotic, short-term decisions? Or will it be a landmark of innovation? A thriving metropolis built to last? The choice is not in the code you write. It's in the blueprint you draw.